Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Yeah, this is the seventh episode of the Rugby Recap. You have myself, Rugby Itch, and you have the Kiwi lads. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, mate. Feel like I need to sneeze, as we know, but
Yep.
powering through.
That's good. That's good. We'll let you sneeze, of course, when needed. But for the meantime, we'll get straight into it, obviously, with I guess, the World Cup matches. I mean, this is kind of like the World Cup really warm-up matches now, obviously in preparation for the Rugby World Cup, which is really just, it's essentially like a month away, really. Kind of, we're getting ever close to it, which is kind of crazy to think. But yeah, of course, we'll start off with the sub-numbers for teams, obviously, from the Rugby Championship. We're kind of having technically the fourth round of the Rugby Championship here with the Wallabies and All Blacks obviously facing in Dunedin. And then you have obviously the Pumas and Springboks facing within Argentina this time. I believe, I can't remember where in Argentina it is, but I know that it's also going to be played, towards home advantage in Argentina's favor. So they'll definitely take that for sure. But yeah, we'll start off with the Wallabies All Blacks game. It's going to be a pretty good game overall. I mean, what do you think about it? Because I mean, they've already announced the lineups. So what were your thoughts on that?
They have, and I'm interested because New Zealand have made a lot of changes. The Wallabies, not so much. They've only gone with a couple switches, same backline as they have for Bledisloe match one. All Blacks, though, I think there's about two or three players who keep their starting position. One being Brodie Retallick, another being Will Jordan, but he's transferred to number 15, and then Artie Savia at number 8. Other than that, though, all new players, some of which having their debuts, such as Sean Stevenson and Summer Penny Finau. I talked about it on my preview, and I said there are 17 players from the Chiefs and the Crusaders in this 23-man lineup. So if Super Rugby Pacific's finals anything to go off, they should go pretty decently.
Yeah, no, it is incredible actually a lot of that the All Blacks have actually gone with because I mean, look, this may be wrong of me because I know obviously they've given a lot of debuts to a lot of people in there, with the likes of Simon Finau and obviously Sean Stevenson, but the one that caught my eye actually was Will Jordan at the 15. I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually happening. Like I've asked for this for such a long time, and I don't believe. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe he's played at 15 for the All Blacks. Well, he's or ever started for the All Blacks at 15. So this is like it's like it's just like a milestone really for him. And I think this is what's gonna look. I know it's one game, guys, so we obviously have to take that into account. But I just think this is gonna be like we can look back at this game, hopefully, and just see like, okay, Will Jordan definitely has the ability to play at 15 if needed to. And when Scott Robinson obviously takes over in the future, maybe he can look back at this game and be like, oh, okay, he can definitely adapt towards that 15, definitely an international stage. So I'm kind of hoping he has a good game overall. But no, yeah, you are
Or
right that the debutants that he's giving out towards the All Blacks is definitely a big plus. And then yeah, no, with the Wallabies, I think really, yeah, I mean you're pretty much bang on. It's really just like the same back line. And I think really the only notable thing that's actually happened is that they've given Tim McDermott actually the captaincy for this game, which is it's crazy actually the thing because he is actually the club captain actually for the Reds, but I never really thought he would actually become captain for the Wallabies. I mean, did you see that? Did you see that happening?
not really. I feel like though, other than maybe Samu Karifi looking through
Mm,
at that lineup, or you
yeah.
could maybe to a stretch say Marika Koromberi or Rob Valentini. So it's probably not hugely surprising that they've decided to give McDermott that crack. I was going to say about Will Jordan. I was going to say when you were saying it's his make or break game, or will it be the first game up against Australia that he doesn't score a try in? Because we've got to remember
Whoa.
he's sitting 5 from 5 at the moment up
He'll
against
score.
the
He'll score.
Aussies. Number 15, maybe that's not where he's going to get the main amount of tries in his career.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I
Could be tricky.
I just I can't see that. There's not a world that I cannot see Will Jordan not scoring into the Wallabies. That's the thing. Like Will Jordan, it's like the Wallabies kryptonite. Really, that's what Will Jordan is to them. But no, I mean, just overall, I mean, like, what do you think from this game? Because I think it's just gonna be one of those where there's not much on the line, of course, for both sides. Because the Bledisloe Cup obviously is now kind of in the All Blacks' favor now. They've won it, obviously, and retained it. And the Rugby Championship is over. The All Blacks obviously won that as well. So this game really is more of a warm up game, really, for both sides. And it's interesting to see that the Wallabies have really kind of gone with an unchanged side compared towards the All Blacks. Does that kind of like tell you a bit that the Wallabies are still a bit, I don't know. Well, they seem more set on their lineup. Does that make sense? Like they seem that they still want to test their lineup compared towards the All Blacks, because the All Blacks kind of have a rough idea now of what their kind of starting best 15 is. Like, do you think this is kind of more of an extra game for the Wallabies to kind of just make sure their lineup has a bit, well, their team really has a bit more chemistry going into the Rugby World Cup?
Yeah, I think they'll be looking at that chemistry side of things, trying to work out how they can build combinations, build up partnerships when they do head towards that World Cup. It's a little bit of a shame about the tight head prop position, seeing as they just lost Alana Latoa and also Taniela Tupou, but they've got Ponefa Masili and also Zane Ungor, two very handy players from Super Rugby Pacific. Ponefa Masili, he's a pretty hard man to put on the ground when he starts driving forward, so I'm sure him and Tamaiti Williams at scrum time is going to be quite an exciting one. But you mentioned about how, in some regards there's not a lot on the line for these two sides, but I think there's also something we need to remember, and that's the World Cup squad selection. Just
That's
around
true.
the corner.
That's true.
All Blacks on Monday. Stevenson, Samapeni Finau, two guys who haven't even had a minute out there on the field for the ABs, and now they have to try and prove why they deserve to head to France as a part of that 33-man squad. Unfortunately, there's going to be a few players missing out for the Wallabies and for the Kiwis. And, this is the big opportunity for some of these guys. Faina Nuku, this will be his only game before that selection after a phenomenal Super Rugby Pacific.
Crazy.
Anton Leonard-Brown, is he going to be that centre replacement, or has Eno at the moment just got that little bit of an edge? I think a lot of answers are coming in this contest, and it should be very entertaining for the Wallabies. They've just got to continue doing what they're doing in terms of that improvement. We've seen each and every game they've slowly got that little bit better. They've had their moments similar to last year, some would argue, still yet to put together that 80-minute performance. And if they're able to do that in Dunedin in a game that the All Blacks have made a lot of changes, what does that do for the selection rankings for a few of these ABs boys heading into Monday? Fozzie's going to have fun, I can tell you that much.
Oh, that's for sure. That's for sure. I mean, the things that, to what I recall, I mean, all the games I can remember at Dunedin, actually, where the Wallabies actually played them, where the Wallabies really just played the All Blacks, it's actually been a pretty decent game, actually. And obviously, the one that kind of comes straight to mind is actually that, I think it was 2017 one. Was it 2017 or 18? I think it was 18, actually. When the Wallabies actually held that lead, I think it was 35, 32 or something. And they scored I think it was, it was Curtly Bill actually got that final try. I think it was in the 77 minutes. And then from the kickoff, the All Blacks steal the ball at the kickoff. They pass it out. It's Scott Barrett to I don't know. I think it was to Retallick then towards Karen Reid towards TJ Baranara, and then I don't know, to Bowden Barrett. They score that final try. I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm kind of hoping we have a good game, going into this one, because that's why I really expect, whatever, the All Blacks and really just play Dunedin. It's always a kind of a fun atmosphere to be in. But no, I think overall, I mean, like you said before, Andy, on Lester Fananku, really going to be interesting to see how he kind of gets along in this game, because he's a player who, in all honesty, guys, I would have said is a kind of he would be a mainstay or really a starter, you could say, if the All Blacks, going into this Rugby World Cup, and really just a player you're like, okay, he's 100% going, going off, what we saw back in Super Rugby, but really because he hasn't played a lot of minutes, and obviously it's not real. Can you really say it's his fault if it's an injury? But it's one of those where he's been in a very unlucky situation, let's say. And he hasn't been really given the spotlight to kind of show off his talents once again. And I don't know what caused him. I'm unsure. It's going to be really fascinating to see what happens there, because again, they've really utilized, I guess, Mark Leia now within that position, and they kind of see Caleb Clark now really. Well, they've used Caleb Clark now a lot actually in there as well during the Rugby Championship. So I don't know. Will they go the two Blues boys instead of Lester Fananku? Man, what do you think? Is that the right call or not? What do you think on that?
I'm just looking at their team for this one, and I have a little bit of a feeling that Faina Nuku and Sean Stevenson are both fighting for that same spot in that World Cup selection squad.
Really? So you
I just feel like at the moment,
oh,
Fozzie seems to like himself some Caleb Clark because he enjoys a big man out on the wing. He seems to like Mark Talia at the moment. So I think that those two have got their spots. He's probably going to pick Will Jordan as a winger just because that's what they have done in the past, that's already 3. Amoni Narawa, if he's match fit, I think, to be honest, with the way that he played in that first game, they may look to pick him ahead. So then you've got 4 wingers. You can't really afford to have too many extra on top of that. So maybe these two are fighting for that same spot. And depending on how Whainānuku, of course, goes in this first game back, if Stevenson can pick up where he left off in Super Rugby, maybe he's the one that they go to. I still see them slightly picking Whainānuku ahead, though, due to that size, and that seems to give Fozzie a hard on, so I think that they'll keep him there in the squad, but it's going to be interesting to see who they go with.
Like I caught there. But no, I think with this one, it's going to be fascinating just because, like, when I look back at it now, like, there's only, is there 33 spots up for grabs, I believe, for this Rugby World Cup? So they have obviously extended it from last year, well, the last one, now adding 2 more to it. But, I mean, I'm having trouble with the fit. Like, will there be even enough spots for the likes of Lester Fananku or even Sean Stevenson? Because that's the thing. Personally, I feel if you're going to go with Narwhal, actually, I think that's the place where you're kind of taking up a spot there because, like you said, you're really going with 4 wingers. So it's going to be very fascinating to see what happens there. But yeah, look, we'll move on then from that game. We'll move on then towards the the Springboks and the Pumas game in Argentina. I mean, that's going to be a pretty good game actually to watch, guys. And I think this is maybe a bold claim, but I think that game actually there's a lot of excitement. I think that I'm actually very excited to watch that game because the Boks, to what we know, have really gone with a very different squad to what we've seen, within the Rugby Championship. A lot of switches in that within that starting lineup. But the Pumas, however, have actually, in my opinion, gone with one of their best lineups actually, and you could arguably say it's the best lineup they have going into this game because again, there is a few names. There is obviously a few names who have maybe missed out. Who really stood out actually within the Rugby Championship. I'd probably say like Mateus Caceres is probably one who I would have liked to see in the starting lineup, but I believe he's actually starting within this one. And I don't believe it's actually interesting because we weren't actually sure about it, but it doesn't seem like Marcus Klemmer is available for this game. So I think do you know when Argentina's next game is? Like, do you know what their next warm-up game is? Because I can't think of another
next game for Argentina.
Yeah. Do they have one?
I shall very quickly look. I believe they've got one more, but I can't quite think of
who it's. They have like one in France, don't they?
It's up against Spain in 22 days' time.
Okay. Interesting. So maybe that's the game where we see Kremen being represented then. But
although would you risk him one game out from the Rugby World Cup if he does have a tendency of getting a suspension? Don't really want to be missing him for those first few games. It's a tricky decision to make because him versus Samoa, I feel like, is a guarantee at least yellow. Just because those boys will be physical, he'll look to take their heads off, and then he might take the rest of the Rugby World Cup off, unfortunately.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, obviously, with him. But no, overall, I'm actually very excited for that game. I mean, what do you think? Like, do you think it'll be a good game to watch, or do you think it's one of those games where it's really just more about getting players up to speed with going into the Rugby World Cup?
I think there are a lot of Springboks players, a little bit similar to the All Blacks, how this is their big chance to secure themselves their spot because they are actually announcing their World Cup squad on Tuesday. So one day after the ABs, the Boks are going to be deciding on theirs. Few players who aren't in the best form, but now getting that opportunity here up against Argentina. And I have to say, the Springbok supporters at the moment, they've admitted it as well. They aren't sure what's happening with the Boks at the moment. They're all saying it's heading into this Rugby World Cup where there is going to be a plan. But currently, in terms of selection-wise, they're giving everyone a crack. But then some players, people are like, why is he still getting a couple more chances? I like the fact that they have decided to give a couple of those other guys who we haven't seen yet in the Rugby Championship the chance. Herschel Yankees, Jean-Luc Dupré, just to see where exactly they are heading forward. Mani Lebok, we've said it all along, he's got to be the starting 10 if Andre Pollard is unavailable. And I think that this game, with Valimza at 15, I hope that they both play well. But if I'm being honest, I hope Lebok does that little bit better so that people don't go, Valimza played well at 15, he should be the 10. Because Willie LaRue's going to be back, It kind of could see some reshuffling. For Argentina, they've got some good players in their lineup.
Yeah,
And
they
I'm
really
looking
do.
forward to seeing what they can do. Pedro Rubiolo, I believe there'll be a little bit of pressure on him, but he didn't go too badly off the bench last week after Lucas Paulos was unfortunately knocked out. That's one
Yeah,
thing I'll say about this game. Less KOs. Like, less than 2 would be great. Less than 1 would be
that would be
great.
very nice.
But, of course, Juan Cruz Malia not playing in this game due to
No,
that suspension.
I saw, I saw that they kind of said it's like a short-term suspension. Actually, it's gonna be like a 2-week suspension, I believe. So
Yeah.
I think that still does obviously make him available for the Rugby World Cup. So that's good for Argentina in that sense because I mean, look, at the end of the day, he's actually a good player. So you got to obviously kind of, I mean, I'm not saying be happy for him, but you can definitely say from a Pumas standpoint, they're definitely happy that he's
Yeah.
available. Let's just say that he'll be
Mhm.
available for selection. But
He's a quick man, isn't he? Quick,
yes, and
good in
he's
the
definitely
air,
good at KOing
strong
people.
hips.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Mixed martial artist in the making.
yes, he is. Yeah, but I think that's kind of it really. Now with those kind of two games, we've kind of again we can talk more in detail of that, but with the I guess the Autumn Nation slash you could say Summer Nation series now coming along now. We're gonna also give a bit more detail towards that within this one. And there's 3 games. Pretty excited to see obviously what these European sides can bring. The first one is really England versus Wales in the Millennium Stadium. What are your thoughts on that? Because I mean, again, we haven't seen these sides really play since what? I mean, like, I'm trying to think. Like, am I wrong in saying we haven't seen these sides play since the Six Nations? Like, am I wrong in saying that? I feel like we've seen them once before, but I feel like this is the first time we're actually seeing the European sides really play for the first time in a while.
I
So
think you might be right there. Other than, of course, the 2 played last week with Scotland
exactly,
taking
yeah,
on
Scotland and
Italy.
Italy obviously
Other
could
than
play.
them, I don't think we've really seen too much action. Borthwick's been waiting, hasn't he, for that opportunity? And actually, Gatland as well. These are the 2 new coaches going head-to-head in this game. We've switched up the order a little bit because this game's at 4:30
Exactly, yeah.
a.m. Scotland playing France at 2:15, but this one, it's Principality, isn't it? I believe for this game.
Is it
For the Welsh,
Principality
or are they
for this?
playing somewhere else in Wales? Are
I thought
there more than one stadium in Wales?
I don't know.
I feel like the Principality's just the way to go, isn't it?
I could be wrong. I thought it was in the Millennium.
Yeah, nah, Principality.
Oh, it is Principality. Okay.
They only play there.
For some reason, I
It's
was
a
like,
great
wait,
stadium.
isn't I don't know why in my head I was like the Millennium Stadium is like I thought it was like the exact same as the Principality. I was like, isn't that the exact same stadium? Wait, let me look this up right now. Millennium Stadium. What is
It
that?
might be, actually. I
It
think it might
is.
be.
I knew I was
Yeah.
right. I was like, yeah, it is the same.
I knew it.
See, I was like, I'm not going crazy here. I knew it was the same.
Mhm.
But no, for that game, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because again, there's a big. I mean, there's a lot of I guess new names going to this side. I mean, again, when you look at Wales, they do have a few. It's a pretty young squad actually. When I look at it, like, what are your first thoughts on the Welsh team?
I would say it always is going to look weird for about maybe 4 or 5 games not seeing Alan Wynne-Jones's
Yes,
name
that's
in
true.
there. But they're certainly trying out a few youngsters, which I feel is what you need to do because this, as well as that World Cup trial of who are going to be those bolters that we put in our squad that could change a game for us in the future. They've got the experience at the back of Lee Halfpenny.
Yeah.
I hope that he doesn't end up injured before that World Cup. I remember watching, I think it was Wales versus Argentina, and I was all excited to see him play. And then I think he picked up an injury within about a minute from stepping,
Yeah.
and not even stepping like actually going around someone, just walking. He ended up picking up that injury, which was a shame because up until that minute he was looking all right. He had caught the ball, but in the back line, fly half Sam Costello, new man there, which I feel. I mean, Dan Bigger, you get used to seeing that name in the number 10 jersey. He's going to be coming off the bench instead as a little bit of cover. Tane Plumtree, playing, of course, throughout Super Rugby Pacific and also in the Bunnies EBC for Wellington. It's great to see him get that chance for Wales. But overall, I think it's a good experience for these younger players. And the experience of those older players, I feel, will certainly help them up against. To be honest, England haven't really gone with a huge amount of young players in their lineup. They have looked to be relatively strong in that back line. They want to make a statement here, I think, is what they're looking for.
Yeah, no, I agree on that front. I mean, and just to go off, just go one more time on Wales. Like, I would say the one player I'm actually looking forward to is actually Aaron Rainwright. I'm actually pretty excited to see what he can do at the number 8 position because I remember actually I think it was when he played the All Blacks. I think it was back like in 2020 or I think it was 2020. It was either 2021 or 2020. I remember like when he got first introduced into I guess like the international stage. A lot of people from that game, even though the All Blacks did win by I think it was by a convincing score actually. A lot of people took notice of Aaron Wainwright then. So I'm pretty excited to see how he kind of has developed since then. But no, yeah, I guess like from an English standpoint, you're right. It's pretty much a lot of you would expect to see kind of maybe see within the World Cup. I'm not saying the exact lineup, of course, but something that a lot of these players would make the World Cup squad in itself. So yeah, pretty excited to see obviously what they can do and what this game can kind of bring towards us. Because at the end of the day, I think like it's like you said, really. I mean, both these coaches are really kind of new towards the I guess the international stage. It's going to be very fascinating to see what happens here because you never know. There's actually a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's a possibility these two could actually meet in the quarterfinals for the Rugby World Cup. Obviously, depending on the results that happen in the group stages. So it's fascinating. Maybe this is kind of like more of a I don't know, like a test screen, you could say, really, just to see, okay, what are these sides going to bring out? What are the, I don't know, what can you get out of this game and see, okay, what can I pick out that maybe might be useful maybe into a World Cup game. But no, we'll move on then towards the next one. We'll go back towards the Scotland-France one, which is actually the first one out of this bunch. But that game is probably the one I'm most excited for, actually, out of all the bunch. Maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but it's just I've always liked watching Scotland versus France. It's one of those games where I think it's always like underrated actually in terms of like all the Six Nations games because if there's like it's I don't know why, but it's like Scotland you consider like having like it's one of like France's kryptonites really whenever they play in Scotland actually. It's one of those weird things actually that I can't really think of a lot of results back in the day now that France have actually beaten Scotland. Again, there is obviously a few I can recall, but there's not a lot. And Scotland, they have a really good side, a really underrated side, actually. And, they've gone with a strong lineup, I believe, going into this game. They've gone with, I'm very excited to see, the center duo, actually, with Tupeloto and Hugh Jones. I mean, that's going to be a great combination there. And, yeah, overall, I mean, like, it's a great side to watch. I mean, Van der Fleer, of course. I mean, it's gonna be unbelievable what he does. I mean, Van der Merwe, sorry, but yeah, it's just gonna be unbelievable what he does in that sense. But because he's always just an unbelievable player to watch, and he's just a force to be reckoned with. So I'm excited to see what he can do for that Scottish side. But yes, in terms of France, I mean, France just don't. It's not their best lineup. We can kind of tell that immediately, but you can definitely tell that France are so stacked that it looks like their best lineup at the end of the day anyway. And I think the one player actually I'm pretty excited to see because I saw this on Twitter actually, but Arthur Vincent actually because I think he's starting in this game. I'm not sure do you know where he's playing? Is he playing 12 or 13 in this game? I think he's playing 13.
He is playing number 23.
23. Sorry. Yeah, I knew he was in this game. I just wasn't sure if he was starting or not. But I know he's probably the one player I'm actually excited to see come back into the side because he's actually had a long-term injury for a very long time, actually. And I think the last time he actually played was back like in 2021. So it's a long time since we've seen him play, but he's still only 23 years old. He's probably one of France's best players, actually, in that center position back in the day. I mean, like he's pretty good defensively as well. So he's definitely someone you can rely on as maybe like the next replacement, you could say, for Feku maybe in the future because he's definitely someone I see as like just as a great replacement for Feku after the World Cup. But what do you think about the game? Like, do you think it's a good game? Do you think it'll be a good game overall?
I hope it's like that Six Nations game we had a few years ago, how it went right down to the wire.
Yeah,
Bryce Doolan, he was playing 15 for that game, of course, didn't clear the ball, and then Scotland managed to get themselves the victory right in the final moments. Like, there's potential for this to be a close game, and I would say for Scotland's confidence, like, taking away a victory here would be massive. They've just lost Stuart Hogg in terms of that retirement. They need, I guess, not just to prove to themselves, but also to their nation that even though some people are considering them as the third team in their World Cup pool alongside South Africa and Ireland, they're going to put up a big fight when they go out there. And if they can cause an upset for one of those two sides, maybe it is Scotland that get to go through to the next stage. But France, they'll be looking to be clinical. A few of these young players, a few of these newer players in there also who haven't really had too much of a chance, got experience in the top 14. It's going to be a great game. And I'm kind of happy that it's on at 2:15 a.m. because it means that we do get to cover it on the channel before the Box versus Argentina.
Yeah. Understand. But I think the other thing I just wanted to point out was that it's actually great to see kind of like the overturn that Finn Russell's had, because you have to remember that he wasn't part of Scotland's plans really last year in 2022, but now he's been awarded the captain. He's now the captain of Scotland once. So it's kind of just a crazy thing to see kind of I guess you could say the relationship between the coach and player, obviously, with Gregor Townsend and Finn Russell, what they've had to go through.
I don't know whether you should be going like that with the relationship.
Oh, but it's the player-coach relationship. It's always been it's been very public in terms of how they've had a lot of disagreements actually in the past. I guess in terms of how Scotland is playing and how they're kind of approaching the game, but it seems that they're kind of now maybe on a common ground now, really, just in terms of how they're going to approach the World Cup. And I mean, it shows that Townsend has a lot of trust now in Finn Russell, and he's kind of turned the page really. So it's kind of good to see that kind of it's just all stable now, because I kind of hated seeing Finn Russell not a part of the Scottish team, because he's actually one of the best players I've seen ever for Scotland in my lifetime for sure. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a good game to watch. And yeah, again, we'll kind of move on, because there's not. I'd like to talk a lot more about this, but there's so many games, guys, this weekend that we have to kind of cover all these games. And really, the final one out of this bunch, in terms of, I guess, like the Summer Nation series, is Ireland versus Italy. And again, this is going to be a good game to watch. Again, like I said beforehand, we haven't seen a lot of these sides play since that Six Nations. And again, Italy did finish last in that competition, and we actually did expect a lot. I'm not sure about you, but I expected a lot of Italy in that competition, actually, because the previous year they had some pretty good results actually against a few teams, mainly against the Wallabies, actually getting that pretty good win against them in the automations in that year. But yeah, just they didn't really perform as the level as what I thought. And obviously on the other scale, Ireland was just remarkable. They obviously won the thing, and I believe they got the Grand Slam with it as well. So it's really two opposites, just ways in the scales. So, what do you think going into this game? Again, the lineups kind of give a bit of detail into it, but what do you think overall?
I think Ireland, for them, this is a game that, Italy at the moment, they have been in some pretty decent form. Anytime they've come back into the international rugby scene, they seem to still be right there, which is exciting because we're slowly seeing them develop more and more. Ireland at the moment, they are considered one of the favourites for this Rugby World Cup, which is, I guess, a testament to how well these boys have been going lately, because they're a side that, of course, in World Cups historically haven't done very well, but a lot of people now are saying this team, there's just something different about them. And yes, that's been said in the past. But once again, this team, they won that tour in New Zealand. They got some Six Nations games in the bag. It's going to be awesome to see how they go here in this first hit out, because I believe next week, I'm just going to quickly check this, but they also have a game, don't they, next week? Or in fact, sorry, not next week, the week after, I think they play England.
Yeah.
And that will be a great game as well. And that is a warm-up game for the World Cup. Then they've got Samoa, and then they head straight to that first game up against Romania. So they've got 3 games here to build up their chemistry, build up that form, and be firing ready to go when they hit France. Because if Scotland's playing well and South Africa start to find their rhythm, Ireland cannot afford to not be putting together 10 out of 10 performances in that group stage. That is the type of group that if you lose an early game, you're on the back foot the whole way through. So I think this Ireland side, their backline speed is always something to watch out for. Jack Crowley getting the opportunity to start at number 10. Of course, Johnny Sexton's still a little bit in limbo, but he will be back for some of the World Cup, I believe, if not most of it. It's an interesting one with his hearing, because it seemed to go for so long, but they didn't really come up with anything right until the end of it in terms of what was actually going to happen for Johnny Sexton. But good backline. Keith Earls out on the wing, a lot of experience there. Stockdale getting the opportunity on the other wing. We've got a bit of Munster flair coming up in this game by the looks of it.
Exactly. But I do think, I mean, like, because just you have to remind me on this one. But how long is actually the suspension? Well, suspension really for Sexton in that case? Because I wasn't actually sure. Like, I
It was
thought it was like
gonna be.
3 weeks.
It
It
was,
was something like I can't
yeah, I think
remember
it's
actually.
3 or 5 weeks because
Yeah,
it was going to be ages, and then he actually didn't he announce his retirement from international rugby, or he announced his retirement from some rugby. It might have been
yeah.
for
Like I think
Leinster.
he announced his retirement from club rugby. I think that's what he did.
Mm.
I think it was something like I think it was like something on the lines of that. So, I know like.
So
I just can't remember with him
yeah,
because
three match ban. So which isn't
yeah,
really that much, is it?
no, because again, like you said, Ireland play what they play this game against Italy, they play against England, and then they play against Samoa. So that covers also the
Mm.
3 games, and then he'll be available in time for the World Cup. But
The thing is, though, when you think about it, right, he gets a 3 match suspension because, of course, you're not allowed to talk to the referees in the way
yeah,
that he did. People were talking about that red card of, or what could have been a red card of Juan Cruz Malia. He gets two
yeah,
weeks for an ass to the face of Grant Williams. So
it is
it's kind
crazy.
of interesting how everything stacks up in terms of suspensions and everything like that. I'm very curious to see how everything is refereed during the Rugby World Cup
Yeah, I think a
because, of
lot of
course, a
people
lot
will
of
be.
people are
Yeah.
skeptical in terms of is a player in the first game going to end up with a 17 match ban, or are they going to end up not getting a card and then it going through the
That's
trial?
true.
But
Yeah,
tell you
yeah.
what are you going to do to get a 17 match ban?
Oh well, just ask Marcus
And
Kremer. He'll be
I
right
was
up
going to
there.
say Marcus Kremer, he'll be a nomination for that one,
Yeah,
but
that's like he'll definitely be the top three for that one for sure.
I feel like you'd
But
have to punch at least half of the opposition,
yeah, I mean,
you
he
know?
should be. Yeah, he should have enough time to do that. I think. Yeah,
An eye
knowing him.
rake, knee in
Yeah,
the nuts.
yeah, he'll
Thanks
do
very
some
much
kind
for
of
coming.
knockouts in there as well. But no. I mean, I was actually going to say just with this Silas side actually because maybe I'm wrong to say this because again Sexton will be available for the Rep World Cup in time, but their first game is against Romania, and I'm not trying to obviously diminish Romania in any sense, but wouldn't you say this is probably the perfect game really for Jack Crowley if he was to get an opportunity, to get a starting opportunity in this Rugby World Cup? Because again, you have to remember with Ireland, they're really playing. You could technically say they're the easiest opponents you could say out of the bunch in terms of the group, and then you have like Tonga, you have Safka. I mean, well, I think they have Safka actually. Is it Safka second? I can't remember.
Third, I believe. I think it goes Romania, Tonga, South Africa, and closing out with
That's it,
Scotland.
yeah, because like South Africa play Romania second. Yes, that's right. Yes, it'll be the third game. So then, yeah, you have Tonga, South Africa, then Scotland, which is like, it's gonna be crazy that group. And I'm very fortunate that I'm gonna be there to watch some of those games. But yeah, it's just gonna be remarkable to see how Ireland do really in this Rugby World Cup. But again, we'll give you guys more of a podcast. I think just around the Rugby World Cup later on because I think that one will probably be probably one of the longest podcasts we'll do for sure because we're going to be covering a lot of content on that one. But yeah, so definitely check out that one for sure. But yeah, we'll I guess we'll kind of finish it off then with the Second Nations Cup. Obviously, with those, it is really the last round. It's the last round of this competition. Fiji are in a pretty good position, I'd say, going into this final game, against Japan. Again, Japan, they are in second. They have 5 points compared towards Fiji 10, but it's going to take a lot for Japan to actually win this one, to what I've seen now, because I was actually thinking Japan at first actually had a chance here, but looking at the points, actually, it's going to take them a bonus point victory against Fiji, and I don't know. It's so weird to say this, but like you're not as confident in Japan as what you were in the past because what Japan showed, from the Rugby World Cup and even slightly before that, you're like, okay, they have something, they have something about them. But going to this one, I don't know. There could be an upset where maybe even Samoa beats Japan. I would not see that. I could actually see that happening, but I mean, I don't know what to think. But I mean, what do you think overall? I mean, first of all, that Fiji Japan game. Are you looking forward to that one?
I am. I think it's going to be relatively close because Japan at home, they've currently got a 50% winning record.
Yeah.
Fiji, they have actually only played one game away from home throughout this Pacific Nations Cup. That was up against Samoa, and they were victorious. But for Japan, they've had 2 games within 5 points, one of which they won, one of which they lost to the Samoans. Fiji, they have won both of their games by around that 15-point mark. So It's the case of, I think it's going to be one or the other. Either Fiji are able to run away with this contest. Japan put under a lot of pressure, although they've got a few returns into this lineup, which may end up helping them out. One I'm looking forward to seeing is Labaskakni back at number 7, alongside Kazuki Himeno and Jack Cornelsen. But
Yeah.
it's definitely going to be the case of Fiji won't want 3-pointers, even though they've got Ben Vula with the kicking tee. They'll look maybe at 1 or 2. But the problem Japan have is to win the Pacific Nations Cup, they need 3 or more tries than your opposition. So that means to score 3 more times than Fiji, who only like working in 5s and 7s. So
exactly,
it's going to be a mountain to climb, that is for sure, for Japan if they want a chance.
Fiji loves scoring those set piece tries. I mean, it can vary. I think you got 2 tries in the last game. So Japan definitely have to kind of watch out in terms of those set pieces. So, I mean, if they're able to, in my opinion, if they're able to stop the set piece, then I think they have a chance in this game. Because, I mean, I know this is obviously going back towards a while, and I'm not saying Japan are at the same level as the All Blacks, but I'm saying, to what I recall back in the day when the All Blacks played Fiji in New Zealand, the All Blacks won that game by a margin because they were able to stop Fiji in their in all their set pieces, really. So if you can do that, then I think, Japan have a great opportunity in kind of getting a bonus point victory here. But like I said beforehand, it's going to be very tough because, Fiji had just been looked like they've been incredible actually in Pacific Nations, guys. So, but no, again, with the other game, we have to obviously mention that one as well with Tonga and Samoa. It'll be pretty excited to see what happens in that one. Again, I see that Luatua is now kind of shifted on from his 6 to the 8 jersey, actually, to give Miracle Fang. I love that Miracle. But no, Miracle Fangi, a starting debut there. And is it a starting debut for him? I think he's actually no. I'm not even sure. Is it a starting debut for him? I think he's played for Samoa before, but
I believe it's his starting debut, but he came off the bench in the last.
That's what I was saying. I wasn't sure if it's a starting debut, but he's debuted before. But yeah, at the number 6, it'd be good to see that actually, because I actually like him at the number 6 and then Luatua at the 8, because it kind of reminds me of the back in the days when he was playing at number 8 for the Blues. So I kind of like that in that sense. And then for the number 7, they have I'll have to look at this again. Like, who do they have at number 7? Is it Jack? No, it's not Jack Lamb.
Number 7, Jack Lamb.
It is Jack Lamb. Okay, I wasn't sure if it's Jack Lamb or
so.
not. Is it Jack? See, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't have the squad right in front of me.
I think, off the bench.
Yeah.
One
okay.
moment.
Yeah.
Jack Lamb.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean that's a great loose forward trio there. I think. So it's gonna be interesting how they get along. But I guess in terms of Tonga, I mean, they just have an incredible side, really. When you look at it, like, what do you think of Tonga? Like, how do you think they've done so far?
I think that compared to last year's Pacific Nations Cup, they have improved leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
You've only got to look at that first game between Tonga and Fiji. Last year, I think Fiji won 36-0. This year, they won it 36-20 or somewhere around there, which is a vast improvement. For the Tongans, this is interesting because in their starting lineup, they don't have still Israel Folau. They haven't got Malakai Fekitoa. He will instead be coming off the bench. But they are still able, when they get going, to really create some problems for the defenders. Tama Poe, he seems to be brilliant at the moment wherever he's playing. Normally in the midfield, finds himself out on the left wing for this game. Charles Piatal at number 15, of course, an electric stepper. I think just needs to get the ball a little bit more for Tonga in this next game to have a really good chance. And then via Fafita, of course, you were talking about Luatua at number 8. He's going head-to-head. All Blacks.
True.
Head-to-head with the ex-All Blacks going one-on-one at number 8. Interesting battle at international level. Ben Tamefuna versus Charlie Faamawina at scrum time is just electric.
That's the battle we all want to see.
It's going to be great to see. But also, of course, 7 superstar Milani Matavao coming off the bench for Samoa. Had a bit of an impact in that game up against Fiji. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he is able to do. But the interesting part of this game is Samoa. If they win this and Japan lose to Fiji, Samoa finish second in the Pacific Nations Cup. So there is still a little bit on the line for this game. An opportunity to leapfrog in this one. And then, I guess it all comes down to how the Fijians go up against Japan, whether or not we see Pacific Islands side at number 1 and number 2, or whether it does go maybe a little bit of a mix.
Yeah, it's gonna be fast to see what happens here because it's kind of what I said beforehand with Japan. It's just it's gonna be really fascinating to see how they do actually in this Rugby World Cup because I think a lot of people will still be kind of I know maybe this is the wrong term to say, but still be a bit kind of brainwashed, you could say, in terms of like the previous results they've had in the Rugby World Cup and I guess the games leading up towards this. Because in all honesty, Japan haven't looked as good as what most people think. I mean, you have to remember that they played, I think, what France last year in the kind of like July internationals. They lost all three of them pretty much to like a French kind of B team essentially to what it was, and not disregarding obviously the French B team because you have to remember that they're still very good. I mean, Australia, the Wallabies, I think the year beforehand only beat them like I think 2-1 really to what I recall. So they're still a very good side, guys. Don't get me wrong, but it shows you that there's definitely like, I don't know. I feel like Japan have maybe dropped off. So yeah, they really, in my opinion, they have to win this game to kind of allow them to be okay. We've got a winning. We're in a winning position now. We can take this into the next game, and then obviously into the Rugby World Cup. So I'm kind of hoping, just from a Japanese standpoint, they can definitely do that. But yeah, I mean that's kind of it really with it. I mean, is there anything else you want to discuss before we kind of end this episode?
So we haven't given score predictions for any of
Yeah.
these games, but I want to know of all of the fixtures, which side is winning by the biggest margin?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. It's fascinating because I would normally just go to one of like the European sides actually in this because they haven't played a game in a while. Well, for all the sides playing, of course, and you'd expect one that just have a better game than the other in that sense. And I'd normally just say I'd probably normally say I'd probably go with Ireland, Italy in this case, and just say they'll have a kind of Ireland will have a good score against Italy, but I think Italy will make it difficult for Ireland actually. So I think if I have to be honest, I'm actually looking towards one of those Pacific Nations games. Actually, I think like that's where you could actually see something in that. And I maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but I actually was looking at that Samoa Tonga game actually as maybe there could be a big difference in that in terms of the high margin. I I don't know about you guys, but I actually think I think I was going to say Samoa, but see this is tough. That game actually is very difficult as well. Oh, I don't know. Because the thing is, I can't really say the All Blacks Wallabies game because it's one of those like where I think that's the obvious one, and it's also one of those where it's just so predictable. Like I just don't want to say that.
Some things are obvious for a reason.
Yeah. Just no.
That's the one I'm going with anyway. I think in my preview I
I know
predicted
you would say
the
that, so
Abies to win
I want to
by
go
about
some
15.
oh, so 15. Okay, I thought you said a bit more than that, but yeah, I'm gonna stick to my guns. I'm gonna say that it'll be the Samoa Tonga one. I'm gonna hedge my bet saying that I think Samoa could actually do the job here. I think they actually could have a big game here, but we'll see. We'll see what happens because again we have to remember that a lot. Well, for that competition, it's actually the last round, but it's really the first really for the Rugby World Cup for the warm-up matches as well as the automation. Well, I keep saying automations, but it's the summer nations now. But yeah, it should be interesting to see what happens, of course. But other than that, guys, hope you guys obviously enjoy the content. Definitely click the like button, guys. We definitely appreciate that. And guys, definitely subscribe to our channel. Subscribe right now because I can see you guys enjoying the content. And yeah, no, we actually had a good response actually from the last one. I think it was like 1.8 in terms of the last review. So if you guys really enjoy the content, click the like button, guys, because we'll be giving you guys more content just like this. And you never know, there could actually be a bit more content actually going into the Rugby World Cup as well. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, besides that, I've been Rugby Itch. I keep going this way. The Kiwi lads. I have to look at my directions. But other way, guys, we'll see you guys next time.